Hi guys, Richard Liew here, editor at NZ Entrepreneur magazine, and today I'm super stoked to be talking to the founders of Natural Paint Co. We're joined by James Mount and Grace Glass. They're joining us from Christchurch today. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Now, Natural Paint Co. I'm guessing that the name says it all, right? But I better let you guys describe exactly what it is that your company is all about.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, the name says almost it all. But yeah, basically in a nutshell, what we do is we sell healthier indoor and outdoor paints and oils and varnishes that are made on natural ingredients and renewable resources. And we've taken out all the harmful chemicals that you normally find in paints, and without compromising quality, performance, and durability.
I'm kind of fascinated to just delve into the story about how you got involved in this and where the idea or the opportunity came from. But can you just explain a little bit further for us? When you say healthier, what exactly does that mean? So you're meaning like all natural, I'm guessing natural organic type materials that go into your paints and oils?
Yeah.
Is it, non-toxic? Yeah, what is it exactly that makes it different from just the standard paint that most of us who know no better would be sloshing on our houses or fences?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the easiest place to start there is looking at some of the problem, because a lot of people may not be familiar with, the problem that we're facing, and that's looking around indoor air quality, and studies that have come out to show that our indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outside. And that's really what we're putting into our homes is contributing to that, and off-gassing of chemicals. So that is furniture, carpets, and paints are a big part of that as well. And when you paint a room, the indoor air is up to 1,000 times more polluted than normal. So it's really focusing for us, it's been focusing on being able to promote healthier indoor air and create healthier indoor environments for people, and identifying that was a big part of that. So with our products, we have no ingredients which can have a negative impact on humans or animals during or after painting, and we've taken that out and replaced it with natural ingredients and renewable resources. So the smell is a tangible thing, because a lot of people, like, it's sort of a accepted part of painting that that your house is going to stink for a period of time. But what we are less aware of is the actual physical, and health effect of paint on the body. Some people get nausea and headaches and dizziness, and then there's more severe effects in terms of like asthma and allergy, and then also risks and around cancer and some really serious effects as well. So we're really passionate about helping to make it more transparent for people when they're painting, in terms of what they're putting into their homes and what they're going to be subject to being in that environment, but also helping identify that it's not just the smell. If something doesn't smell, then that doesn't mean it's healthier for you. It's actually what is going into the products that I'm putting into my home, that I'm going to be living around, being involved with. We have such a passive relationship with paint, and yet we're around it for 90% of our day, or even more so, with times like COVID and spending more time at home. So it's really important that we're creating environments where it's really healthy for us. And that's a big part of our company. And then it's also the sustainability side of things, because paint industry was started out of using byproduct after the wars, like petroleum byproduct. And the industry hasn't really changed that much from those beginnings. And so for us, we identified that there was an industry which had barely changed in the last 70 years, really reliant on toxic ingredients, petrol ingredients, and no transparency of what people were putting into their homes. And we thought, hey, can we do something better here? A lot of other industries are focusing on more sustainable practices, using natural ingredients where you can, and we figured, let's do something with the paint industry here. And places like Germany have been selling natural paint since the 90s. So that whole like greener, healthier building has been picked up a lot sooner overseas. And so yeah, figuring out we can do something better here, and that's how we started the journey really 6 years ago, identifying that. And like Grace's background, well, she can tell you a little bit about her background. That was a natural fit for the company as well.
So I started my career as an emergency nurse. So that's how we took the business down here in Christchurch. So I was working full time while we started the company, and then it kind of got so big and busy that we had to make the call if we were going to hire someone or I was going to quit my career. So at 22, I left my nursing career and started this journey with James full time. And yeah, we just kind of taken it from there really.
So with your paints, and just let me get this straight, you're saying that they're not petroleum based. So what's the secret sauce instead for you guys?
Well, lucky we can share that with you because we disclose all of our ingredients in our paints, which is one of the biggest differences between us and like chemical-based brands. Like we are 100% transparent with what we do, and so a lot of our products, or all of our products, are made on clays, plant resins, rocks, minerals, like all crushed together, making like a really, really high-performing product. Yeah, I don't know if you want to go into more detail.
Yeah.
The ingredients.
So as Grace said, we disclose everything, and really it was about, for us, it was about, can we put more of the good stuff in and take out the bad stuff that doesn't need to be in there? The cheap synthetics or the chemicals that are in there, which allow paint companies to maybe make their products cheaper, and there's nobody holding them accountable to what they are putting into their products. So that's where we re-looked at all of it, and when we can create products, utilizing some of New Zealand's top paint chemists, we can use ingredients which are proven to work or are working overseas, and then use some really top chemistry as well, to be able to create products which outperform the chemical paints on the market and don't need the cheaper synthetics and the chemicals in there. And a lot of that can be done with ingredients from nature. Part of what we do as well is, titanium dioxide is a natural ingredient that's in all paints, but most paint companies will use a lot less of it because it's a more expensive ingredient, but using more, you get better coverage and a high quality product. So we use some of the highest rates in the industry, which give our product, basically make our products go further per litre. And then you don't need unnecessary chemical fillers to try and make the paints work in a different way. And we also, part of the sustainability side of it is utilizing ingredients where we know more about the life cycle of those ingredients, how we got to source them, and the way they've been sourced, has that been done ethically? And titanium dioxide is another great one of that, because there's a few different grades in the industry, and it all comes from China, but it's looking at how is it mined sustainably, and then is it processed sustainably? And the majority of the grade that is used in New Zealand is a cheaper grade, but the way in which it's washed, it pollutes waterways in China. Whereas we use a method where the water is recycled. So we might pay a little bit more to produce our products, but we get a product which we know is not only the end product is having less of an impact on the environment, but actually the process of manufacturing it is having less impact on the environment as well.
So can I get you guys to sort of, let's wind back the clock a bit. And I'm interested to know when the sort of, I guess, the idea came to you that, hey, this is something you wanted to do something about. So was it, for example, that you needed to paint something and that started you thinking, what am I going to use? Or was it, as you mentioned, the just your concern about the health side of this, and the materials we use in homes, that sort of led you down the path of, okay, well, what can we do in this space?
Yeah, more the latter, but still a little bit different. I mean, we never thought we would end up in the paint industry. I was at university, or had finished at uni and fell into the paint industry as a bit of an interim job to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And Grace, alongside that, was nursing full time. And we were making changes in our own lives to live more sustainably and be, I guess, more conscious consumers. And being in the industry really gave me, it was a real eye-opener to the way products were made, how it was reliant on petrochemicals and unsustainable practices, and really how this industry wasn't changing, where other industries like cosmetic and food and, you know, we're all changing to promote health and promote more sustainable ways of producing products, but the paint industry was not really addressing this. And you know, alongside that as well, Grace's passion for health really drove that desire to be able to look at this industry and see, can we do something better here? And also hearing people's stories about their negative effects with paint, in terms of asthma and allergies and just chemical sensitivity and toxicity. We really identified there's a big problem here. And then that sort of got us started on looking at this, and we started by importing products from Germany. So yeah, had natural paints for a long time, and the natural side of things was good, but the quality wasn't up to par with what the chemical brands have here in New Zealand. The paints were quite chalky and matte, hard to clean, and that's really just a difference of what the market is demanding in different countries. You know, Germany, they care a lot more about that sort of matte chalky finish, and they paint a lot more often. So the washability side of things is not as important. Whereas in New Zealand, we want a product which is really affordable, and we can get a finish which we know we can clean easily. It's going to last a long time, because we don't paint as often. So that was a real sort of turning point for us in terms of knowing that if we were going to be successful, we had to focus not just on health and sustainability, but on quality as well. And that created the foundations of what we started the company on, were our three pillars: quality, health, and sustainability. And we knew we had to get all of those three to align to be able to be successful. Because, you know, we're going into an industry which has a couple of big, very well-established brands that have been around for a long time. They have a lot of trust in the quality of their products. And so to break into that, not only in the DIY sort of consumer market, but also going into the trade space, you really need to go over and above to prove yourself. And so that sort of over and above also became sort of a theme for us, and that was around the ingredients and transparency of that. We needed to be able to prove that what we were saying matched up, and people can read our ingredients right on the tin and make a really conscious choice for themselves about whether they want to use our paints. And then also having the quality that goes over and above what you'd expect from a chemical paint to really prove that we have a good product. Because there can be misconceptions around a natural product in different industries, that maybe you're having to compromise on something there. Maybe it's going to be really expensive, or maybe the quality is not going to be as good. And when you're painting a home, it's a big outlay in terms of finances, but also a big outlay in time. And you don't, it's not something where you're spending $50, and if it doesn't work out, okay, well, I can kind of take a hit on that. And some people are spending 5-10 grand, and so they need to really trust that the product they're going to put into their home is going to last. And when their kids mark the walls and get grubby fingers on the walls, that it's easy to clean. And that's where we've managed to land. 6 years now, we have a product which exceeds the market standard, and we have people using our paints purely just on the quality, but we also have a lot of people using it because all of those things are important to them, the health and the sustainability as well. And it's really helping us break into the trade side as well, with working with architects and property developers, and your painters and decorators as well.
So Grace, I wonder if you could just walk us back through the very early stages. So James mentioned you started just basically importing some natural paints from overseas.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide, hey, look, we need to have a crack at developing our own recipe, so to speak? And what exactly did you do? Because someone from my point of view, who has no idea about that particular industry, like, I'm just wondering, was it a matter of going outside, grabbing some stuff from out in the garden and starting to mix it up?
Yeah, no, we didn't. We sourced some of New Zealand's top paint chemists. So we started importing them, realised really early on that the quality was not going to stand up to New Zealand with the washability and things like that. So very quickly, James and I found the top paint chemists and then worked together with all of our key points, the health, the quality, the sustainability at the pinnacle, and then kind of developed products based on those three pillars. And so quite quickly and early on, they managed to crack it and get some really high functioning products out there. So we actually started selling them relatively fast. And then from there, we started with what we call our wall, or like a wall paint mat, which was still quite chalky, and which was based on the European formulas. And then we developed like low sheen, and then we developed an enamel. And so then we slowly developed the whole house system over a couple of years and just expanded our range. And then at the same time, we completely broke the conventional way of selling paint, which is traditionally in a hardware store, and we went purely online. So while we were developing that, we also developed like e-commerce first in the paint industry, which was super challenging and big, and we built that ourselves. Took me about 100 hours outside of my nursing job, and just playing around with how that would work, how we would display colour. And then over the 6 years, we've also been doing a lot of innovation in that space. So if people went and checked out our site, the way in which you pick colours, displayed, how you go through the product journey of what you need for your space is really intuitive and fresh and new. And that's all delivered to your door within 2 working days. So yeah, the whole kind of look and feel and the way we've approached this whole company has been really different, I guess, like a millennial approach. Yeah, like why not disrupt the whole entire chain, right from how we do it, how we make it, how we source it, made here in New Zealand, and then how we distribute it.
That's cool. And James had sort of mentioned, your background in health, and had explained that basically he was bumming around after uni, painting job.
Yeah.
So
I was supporting him now.
yeah, and seriously, for people watching this who may be working on a project that maybe they're thinking, hey, is there something in this? How did you go through the process of deciding, I'm going to actually leave my job and dive in? Can you just talk us through the thought process there? How did you get to that point where you just felt comfortable enough to go and do that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy. That's probably the very first thing. And I think if anybody is thinking about that, never ever underestimate how big of that decision it is, and how much, when we put so much time and energy into a career path or building something, it becomes a part of your identity. And so that was a huge part for me, having to kind of step back, and not only like the financial risk, but there's also just your identity risk. I was Grace, I was the nurse, I was an emergency nurse, like that was me, and then kind of leaving that and that security and what that offered to Grace, the paint person, didn't, it was quite a journey. How did I become comfortable with it? I didn't. I ran away for 3 months on my own. I went traveling and spent all my money, and then came back, and James was like, so are you ready? And I was like, yeah, I mean, if we just do it for a few years, I guess I'll be fine. And we're still here, and I'm loving it more than ever. So I think it's about giving yourself the opportunity and that freedom to kind of be like, nothing is actually final. And that's how I kind of dealt with it. It was like, hey, give this a go. You're young enough to leave a career. Like I could, be a nurse until I'm 65 or 70, or I could give this a go and be, do I like it? Do I love it? Is it purpose driven? Is it something that I'm really passionate about? And then once this no longer serves that motivation, then I can do something else. But right now, this totally fits the ethos of my life and the values. But yeah, it wasn't an easy process, and there were lots of tears initially, and a lot of times during the day, I would really miss that client interaction that I'd have. But then slowly, as you develop yourself, and it's a huge learning thing as well. I think that was the other big thing. I kind of expect I'll just go into this and I'll be really good at it. Well, I wasn't, because I didn't get a 3-year, 4-year training degree in how to run a natural paint company. So it's been a massive steep learning curve, and I think that's for others, is that just be kind to yourself and know that it's so much learning and that you are doing the best that you can, and keep going. Like, you're going to want to give up. You're going to want to feel like it's too much. And sometimes take a step back, take the weekend off, do what you need to do, but like keep coming back to it, because if it's a good idea and it's got merit and you can see that like consumers need it and that they want it and it's going to change their lives, then like that's all the passion that you need, I think, to make it successful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because that there's a very serious emotions that founders have to go through, especially as you say, we're changing our identity often, and that really is something that hits us. It's right at the core of who we are as people.
Yeah, and
so I think some really valuable insights there.
Totally, and I've seen a lot of people go through this, I think, with COVID recently. You've seen, like I've got quite a few friends who are pilots or different things like that, and their whole life of what they have put so much energy into has had to change, and they've had to relook at that and look at new ways of finding purpose. And as humans, we need that. We need to put our energy into something. And so, yeah, it's a very real part of an entrepreneurial journey, and one that we hadn't really discussed with anyone when I kind of went to do it. I think the other thing is starting it quite young, like at 22, was kind of a challenge in itself, just because we didn't have other people that were kind of going on this journey. Whereas now, being in our later 20s, kind of we've got more people, or you've been doing it a bit longer, so you've got other people that you can draw on, all that experience. But kind of, I think when you've trained for 4 years, and I was only just starting. I was only really, really fresh in my nursing career, so people thought I was crazy.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, maybe sometimes it's probably a good thing that we don't necessarily go and ask everyone else's opinion about whether or not we should go do this, right? Because chances are, generally, they're going to say, what on earth are you thinking? You've just spent all this time learning how to do what you're doing in your career, and you're talking about walking away.
Yeah.
So, maybe...
Yeah.
I think in general, humans are pretty risk adverse, and they'll look at what you're losing, not what you could stand to gain. And I think that is often the difference between an entrepreneur and then somebody who maybe has an idea but stays, doing what they're doing and never ends up jumping into that something else, because there's so much safety and security and potentially what they are doing.
And I think that's actually probably the one thing when we discussed it. It was like, will I look back and think, what if? We have this opportunity, it's not going to wait. If we don't take it, someone will, because it's needed. And so it was like, it's now or this, or you pass up the opportunity. And when I put it like that, it's like, it's just another opportunity in life that we get presented with. And when I kind of put a boundary on it, that was like, if I don't love it, or it isn't like my version of success within this time frame, then I can let it go. But it was like, I had to give it the opportunity that it deserved. Yeah.
Now, I'd like to just sort of talk a bit about your recent crowd funding raise through Snowball Effect, and you set out to raise, I think it was 1.2 million?
Yeah, 1.2 to 1.4.
Yeah.
Okay, and you did that sort of no worries. Obviously there's a lot of people out there very interested in supporting the journey and being part of it. So can you tell me, first of all, what was the catalyst for you deciding, okay, it's now time to go and get external money, right? Because there's a whole bunch of obligations and that come with that. So what was it that you needed to do in the business that you couldn't do without raising funds?
Yeah, well, we knew, even when we started the business, we knew at some point we would raise money, because we have big aspirations, and growing off purely profit alone was going to be too slow for where we want to go and where we're aspiring to take the company. So we did start on a $20,000 loan, and for 5 years we grew over 50% year on year on profit. And it was really, we knew that the time would be right, and we didn't know exactly what it would look like. But I think it was a coming together of our own confidence in ourselves, and our own confidence in our products, and our own confidence in the market as well. And also being ready to, I guess, take that leap and take that next step in terms of responsibility and bringing other people in as well. You know, we've only been really held responsible to ourselves for the last 5 years, whereas now we are, you know, we have 184 investors on this journey with us. We've got advisors, we've got, you know, a team here that, you know, staff, and so yeah, we didn't really have a set date, but it just felt right to do it now. And so it started with putting some feelers out probably over a year ago, and we started by trying to do it ourselves. But we figured out pretty early on that the amount of information that we needed to be able to put together, we know our business very, very well, but being able to put it into the right format and the right documents that investors want to be able to see and read, you know, doing those financial projections, cash flow forecasts, all of that, which neither of us have, you know, a big accounting background. There was a lot that needed to come together in a really succinct way for investors to be able to have a look at. And it was also being able to get our message across in the right way for investors. And so we had conversations with investors prior to engaging with Snowball. And some of those went well, and we took feedback from that to them when we did engage with Snowball to really be able to do it really, really well. And yeah, I mean, and then that journey itself was probably eight months.
Yeah.
And it is difficult. It is difficult raising money while you're also running a business. And I think that was also, we've got to a point now where we have enough team to be able to manage that day to day, you know, without us needing to be there every single day looking after that we could step back and be able to work on the raise. And, you know, it did take more than our 40 hours a week, but to be able to manage both of those, but I really needed that dedication to be able to do it well. And yeah, so I think that also was a big turning point for us, being able to have that team in place to be able to allow us to do that. And being very, very clear on your strategy as well was a big one for us. Over the last year, we've really solidified where we want to go, how we're going to get there. And so being able to have that helps you understand, if I take on, you know, $1 million, what are we going to use it for, and how we're going to use it to really grow the company. There's no point in taking on money if you have no plan of how you're going to use it. Yeah.
There's a number of different ways that, you know, growing businesses can go and source capital. You chose crowdfunding, or specifically equity crowdfunding. Why that, as opposed to, let's say, going and targeting, let's say, an angel investor group, or, you know, even maybe through debt, taking on a bigger loan, for example?
Yeah, good question. The bigger loan, growing 50% year on year, cash flow has been a bottleneck in terms of being able to grow even faster than that. Like, that is a really good rate to grow, but we want to grow quicker than that. And so taking on a loan, the risk was that if we were growing, if we 5x'd in a year, are we going to be able to service that and then want to be able to 10x the following year and keep growing really fast and hard? It takes a lot of money. So that was part of the reason to look at the equity side of things. Also, being able to our model has always been inside out, or that's the way Grace coins it, the inside out model, which is we're going to influence the end consumers the most, who are then going to influence the trade. And we've noticed that over 5-6 years. You know, it's our consumers and our end clients that have driven that change within the trade industry, within the architects and the builders, because they are the ones who are demanding something different. And we felt that if we are going to raise, why not also go down that route where we've got our consumers and everyday New Zealanders that believe in us. That would be, how cool would that be to be able to have them with us on this journey? And then they're also, you know, talking to their friends and family about it, and they've, you know, got a piece of Natural Paint Co, but they're also massive brand advocates as well. So it really helps get the brand out there, and raise the profile of the business as well.
And I think just the other part to add to that is we always know at this point of our company that we need to stay agile. And so that was one reason as well, not to go maybe down like the VC route, which would have taken like the whole round of funding, which then brings in, I guess, other opinions and viewpoints about where and how you want to run your business or the direction, where we were very set on our strategy and the way in which we wanted to go about it. And so we preferred this route where we had more advisors as opposed to a board or one specific person like guiding that, and we wanted that more agile approach where we can really respond to the market, because that's actually how we've been successful to date as well. So we were more comfortable with having a wider range of investors as opposed to just one or two. The 1.4 and 1.4 million isn't actually like a lot of money when you talk in the investment game as well. So, and also we really wanted a good valuation on our company, which Snowball Effect helped advocate for us on that too, which is another positive reason to have people who are very experienced in this advocating for you and working on your behalf, to keep you safe, make sure you are getting what you should for how hard you've worked, and to help you in that. They were so beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, from an entrepreneur to another, I'd say maintaining that control is really, really important in terms of being able to execute on your strategy, and staying focused. Nobody knows the business better than we know it, and we can bring in the expertise to help us through advisors and or through paid as well, but it still gives us the ability to ultimately make the final decision. And that was a big part for us. Was our fear was that going to angel investors, they'd want to take too much of the company and have too much control, which we love the ability to be able to have high level people around us to be able to offer advice and help give feedback on experiences that we have not experienced yet, to help minimize mistakes. But I think ultimately as entrepreneurs, you want to retain as much control as possible, especially if you're going to raise again, and we know that where we want to go, we might raise 2 or 3 times again. And so looking at how does that dilution work its way down over the next 5 years, and will we still end up with the amount of the company that we're happy with, heading forward.
So a couple of interesting points there stand out to me. Number one, you mentioned from the time you started the working on the crowdfunding raise, it was about an 8-month process, right?
Yeah, if not longer.
Okay.
I can't quite remember when we started, but it went fast. But it also, I know that it was, we're halfway through the year now, and it was well before Christmas that we started it. So I would say it was at least 8 months.
Yeah. So first and foremost, people out there thinking of doing any sort of fundraising, be aware that this does take a serious commitment of time and focus, as you pointed out, that makes it quite difficult to separate yourself from the day-to-day stuff that needs to just keep the business going. The other thing that stands out to me is, you launched, or you got started back in 2015, and here we are 6 years later. Now you're doing the fundraising. And I think there's a bit of a perception maybe out there amongst the entrepreneur community that, hey, what we do as entrepreneurs is we have an idea, we do some quick market validation, and then immediately you go and raise money. Now, hindsight's a beautiful thing. If you had the opportunity to go ahead and raise money like you have done, but let's say it was 4 or 5 years ago, would you have done it? Do you think that would have actually been able to grow you faster or get you further ahead of the game?
I don't know if Grace and I will have different opinions.
Yeah, I think we might.
It's really hard because you're looking at it through the lens of the experience you have now, and like how we have grown over the last 5 years. At the time, we didn't feel like it was right, and so I can only really look at it from that perspective of the people that we were and where the business was at. It wasn't the right time previously, and what we have learned growing a company purely on profit and on a $20,000 loan is that bootstrap mentality will serve us heading forward. in terms of being able to be really careful with that and be really creative, you know, problem solve. And my fear would be that if we had taken on money right at the beginning, when we weren't the entrepreneurs that we are now, we would have given up a large percentage of the company then, and would we have been able to actually execute on the growth, you know, that we are predicting now with the experience that we had and without going through the lessons that we've gone through now. We've had a couple of, you know, a couple that stand out to me of big times in the business where we've learned a hard lesson. And if we were doing 5-10 times more than what we were doing, the stakes would have been so much higher that those lessons would have been so much more painful. And so I'm glad for the lessons that we've learned early on. And I would, looking back, if we'd learned those lessons and we'd already taken on equity, it would have been a lot more painful. So I don't regret taking on equity now, taking on money now rather than, you know, at the beginning. And I think that, yeah, we would have had to give up quite a lot of equity back then, and then still needed to raise in the future. What's your opinion?
No, it's good to see that we are actually aligned on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, James. I don't think that the people that we were and the time for Natural Paint Co's inception 6 years ago would have been taken by the market well enough for it to have the growth that it has now. And I think it is a huge misconception in the entrepreneurial world, where 6 years is a long time in business. And we kind of used to think the same until it's not. And you look at these businesses and you think that they're overnight successes, except you then realize that for the first 6 years, it was really, really hard. And then they hit this point, and then they had exponential growth from that year 7 to 10 or whatever it is. And I think we never would have learned our business like we do. We didn't know our customer base six years ago. We didn't know if the method of distribution that we choose online would have worked. We didn't know if the products were going to work. We didn't, you know, like packaging, like samples, like there's so many parts of the business that we didn't know, that even if we had had 1.4 and it had been laid out in front of us, I don't think we would have even remotely known where to spend it. We wouldn't have known what kind of staff we wanted on board. I mean, we only hired our first staff member 2 years ago. So before that, we were doing everything ourselves as well. And so there's been really like pivotal points in the company where we have had to step back and make those decisions. But I don't necessarily think that money is the difference. However, if I ever did a business again, or when I do another business again, or when we do another business again, absolutely would love to start on more money. Not saying that, like, yeah, not going to turn down having money, because starting on $20,000 was super difficult, and there's been times where we have had no money and you look and go, oh my goodness, like if something magical doesn't happen, this might be our last month. But then, you know, you work it out and you push through. So if we were to do another product-based business, especially like retail like this, again, with the experience that we've had now, I think we would raise earlier, because we would know the strategies and where to execute. But that purely comes from experience.
Yeah. I just want to add something to that as well, which has just popped into my mind when you're talking, was, you know, the 6 years has been product development as well, because we've put products into the market and we've been testing and up, you know, changing them and upgrading them as we've received feedback, or as we have felt that we could make something better. And the nature of this industry is that if we'd put something out to market that wasn't up to par, especially in the trade space, we wouldn't get a second chance. We knew that. And so there would have been a real risk there of releasing a product into a market which we don't really understand the market. Maybe the consumer mindset isn't quite there yet, and we would have really run the risk of putting a product in which didn't actually have 5 years of experience and feedback to be able to, you know, make sure that we're really confident with it.
Awesome. I mean, there are so many very valuable insights there for founders who are watching this. And I've got to say, like, you know, for, you know, you're only in your sort of later 20s, as you point out, but that wisdom and sort of maturity, and be able to look back and realize that, hey, you know, actually giving two new, fresh entrepreneurs a whole bunch of money before they even know what they're doing is not necessarily the best recipe for long-term success. So, well done on making it through that time, and obviously on the raise. So the future to me looks bright. Can't wait to see what happens next at Natural Paint Co.
Richard, we really appreciate it.